I'm Ziyad. I'm the founder of SafePay, and basically I'm a software engineer by background, by profession. I did my undergrad in computer science and mathematics from Cornell in the U.S., and I've been working in startups both in New York and Silicon Valley for the past 5-6 years. That's my background. A couple of years ago, I felt the urge to kind of try something new and work on a side project.
Okay.
Nothing too big at the time, but over the years, I've put more and more of my time and energy into that, and that resulted in SafePay. And since then, I've been working very closely with one of my closest best friends, Raza, who's kind of now joined in as a co-founder to help me push SafePay forward.
Hi, I'm Raza. My background is I was a lawyer practicing law in the UK until 2018. I had studied law in the UK and practiced at a very well-known law firm specializing in banking and finance transactions for close to 5 years when I decided to move from London to Pakistan, really to explore the kind of entrepreneurial space over here. I had a 1-year stint in a transport and logistics company over here, which gave me a real upfront view of how business is conducted here and the kind of characters involved in it. And it's something you can't really learn in a textbook. You have to learn by doing. Ziyad and I have been very close friends for over 25 years. This is just kind of the next chapter in, I guess, our friendship. But I have been working indirectly with Ziyad on SafePay since 2018, just around the time I decided to leave London and come here. I was advising with my legal background on some of the kind of regulatory aspects of it, privacy, data protection, etc. But then in 2019, as we'll describe later, when the business model changed slightly, I saw there was a role for me to participate more in SafePay, and Ziyad invited me to kind of join that journey, and so today I'm co-founder of SafePay, and we're working together to pursue our ambitions.
So SafePay was basically born out of the frustration of being a Pakistani citizen and consumer and not having access to services that Western economies and Southeast Asian economies, Middle Eastern economies have. So for me, when I went to the US and I experienced the ease and simplicity with which people are able to do things online, whether it's like watch TV or purchase things online, those same services, Suhulat, aren't available in Pakistan. So I was like, and I'm obviously well connected with Pakistan. I still have contact with Pakistan. I always wanted to maintain that. And these complaints and these kinds of pain points kept coming up on various social networks in Pakistan. We don't have PayPal. We don't have the ability to do these things online. There's no solid e-commerce kind of infrastructure in Pakistan. And I was like, I'm in a well enough position myself where I could potentially do something to help that. And I'm passionate about obviously software and finance at the same time. So that in intersection of both of those fields were kind of like well placed for me to focus and try and build SafePay and launch it for Pakistani merchants and help them grow on their online businesses. Bilkul. So we've seen a lot of interesting companies come up in the fintech space in Pakistan because obviously it's a huge problem. And whenever there's a huge problem, it's a big opportunity. And there are a lot of companies coming in to build innovative solutions around that problem from their own perspective. From SafePay's perspective, we wanted to focus more on e-commerce transactions with credit and debit cards. And for us, that was a holistic solution around that was lacking in the market because the only viable or at the time available solutions were gateways being offered by banks and bigger companies like Jazz, EasyPesa. And we felt that they were underserving the market in a huge way. A lot of interesting tech companies, a lot of interesting e-commerce stores weren't being facilitated by these big banks, either because they didn't want to or because they didn't have the time. And we felt that with our expertise in software, in technology, and our focus on running as a startup, which is providing an experience both to the merchant and their customer, we could differentiate ourselves and carve out a nice niche in this market to, to first break into it, then eventually offer something to these bigger companies that has more value than just payments processing.
Sure.
So that's how we try to position ourselves in a different way.
Excellent.
So I think, I don't have a technical background as Ziyad does in software engineering. So for me, a lot of the kind of involvement is in the trenches, interacting with our customers and the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And I see that there is, a huge wave of entrepreneurial spirit that is going to, crash essentially in the upcoming years. A majority of the customers we interact with are younger than us, they're tech savvy, and they're ambitious as well. And those are exactly the characteristics of the people we want to work with. They push us to iterate our product so that we improve upon the services. And just to go back on the point on who do we see as competitors in the landscape, I think this gives us a leading edge actually in comparison to them, because our founding mantra is that we will only succeed if our merchants succeed. And yes, we've been kind of, we're a lean startup at the moment, but the more traction that we gain in the market, we know that, that will naturally result in us, getting bigger and bigger. I think I see the space, just getting bigger. I don't think digital payments are going to go down. There are some problems and roadblocks in the way, but I mean, these are challenges that any economy, any country, any jurisdiction have to face. And it's actually very exciting for us that we can, provide the solutions for this. I mean, we're right now in the space where we're identifying these challenges. We're, to the best of our abilities, going to try create solutions to those. And to the extent we need to reach out to other organizations to try push forward the entire landscape, more than happy to do that. And then also, reaching out to organizations like Tech Pakistan. It's important for us to have a pulse of what's going on in the entrepreneurial network across the country.
Yeah, no, just to add to what Raza was saying, I think there's going to be a big enablement of new kinds of businesses and companies that, we haven't seen right now in Pakistan. And key to that is going to be a solid payments infrastructure for the online economy. Right now, whether that's going to come from SafePay or someone else, hopefully SafePay will play a part in that.
Sure.
But I think what's going to be interesting is how this space kind of evolves. Right now we're seeing majority of online transactions taking place in e-commerce stores. We're seeing slowly how new types of industries are being digitized. So a lot of startups that are popping up, whether they're travel startups or insurance startups, or marketplaces, peer-to-peer marketplaces, etc. Those all kind of need a solid payments or economic infrastructure to conduct these kinds of transactions. And one of the interesting things I saw while I was in the States was how technology startups like Stripe and Braintree at the time were able to spearhead and supercharge these startups that eventually, they couldn't exist without companies like Stripe or Braintree. So you think of Uber, Lyft, Instacart that does grocery deliveries, all of these companies, without the payments aspect, they wouldn't be able to survive. So the ease and accessibility of a simple payments infrastructure for companies so that they don't have to focus on that and they can just focus on what they're doing is going to be huge to Pakistan in the coming years. So entrepreneurship, I think it's more of an attribute of a person. You have to, it's a mindset as well, right? So a lot of people say कि आपको company शुरू करनी है, don't do it, it's too much of a struggle, this and that, you will get demoralized and eventually you won't do it. But I think that's the wrong way to look about it. What a person who wants to start something should think about is accept that it's going to be a struggle for sure, but also think about the larger impact that they can have on the people that are going to eventually rely on their product. Okay, if that could be such a strong motivator for someone that they can eventually overcome all of those internal kind of mental roadblocks that are going to maybe stop you or cause you to quit or something. But in Pakistan, the key thing is that you have such an opportunity. It's such an untapped market for so many reasons that someone with the right mindset or a small team can have a larger impact beyond just themselves, beyond their community, and ultimately, beyond even the country maybe. That it's extremely exciting for someone to take on that challenge. It's scary for sure, but it's ultimately extremely rewarding in many ways. for the person taking on that challenge. So I think it should be encouraged. There should be proper frameworks coming out by the government, which they are. So that's a good step in the right direction. And ultimately, yeah, there's things going on that we're kind of in touch with, and we know about certain things, but certain things we don't know about. And these kind of things will keep evolving, and the ecosystem will continue to grow.
So I kind of divide the entrepreneurship question you posed into SafePay and non-SafePay. So from the SafePay side, it's kind of obvious what we're trying to achieve. Ziyad's already mentioned it. We want to enable merchants that are showing entrepreneurial spirit just to get on with it. They shouldn't have to be worried about how they're getting payments. That's something for us to worry about. Just to add to Ziyad's point on the non-SafePay side, definitely agree with him. It's a mental attribute. Unfortunately, I think Pakistan is a step behind many countries, even regionally, in terms of that. You see some of the ongoings in some of the neighboring countries that we have. I don't think there's any intrinsic reason why Pakistan is in this situation, and we're definitely hearing the right noise. But some of the with SafePay, we can do our bit for the payments part. What we kind of need to see is equivalent companies setting up in different spaces, solving the kind of roadblocks that we see. So in e-commerce, that is logistics side, for example, and transport, which there's huge rooms for improvement in that. That's not our space. But for us to kind of enable our merchants through payments, and for that dot to connect with the dot of kind of increased orders for them, that angle also has to be kind of considered. And we're hearing the right noise from the government, and hopefully over the next 3 to 4 years, policy implementations that have been kind of proposed will result in actual action. But really the time is now for us to start seizing on that. We shouldn't wait for for other countries to kind of go ahead further in the next 5 to 10 years.
So I've definitely spent a lot of time in the US, and I grew up here, so I kind of have a good understanding of both. The US, I mean, fine, it's way ahead of Pakistan in many aspects, but in a way it took its own path, right? And that doesn't mean Pakistan needs to follow the US in all the things that it does. Pakistan is its own unique economy. There are very many things that make Pakistan different to the US, to the UK, to Western economies. And we should kind of celebrate that in a sense, but build around it and take these unique opportunities that come our way and tailor products for this market. There's no one-size-fits-all solution for every market. What works in the US might not necessarily work in Pakistan. And as entrepreneurs, as people who are going down that route, we need to be cognizant of that fact and think about how we can kind of build products to fit the needs of the people in our market, and ultimately not only build a solution that works in Pakistan, but who knows, that solution might work in regional economies around Pakistan as well.
So my experience was in the UK. Completely agree with Ziyad. There's not some one-size-fits-all solution, and I've actually relocated here for the last 1.5 years now. So and again, with the 1 year that I spent in the transport and logistics sector, you really have the opportunity to interact with the real economy, and these are people who are dealing exclusively on cash, very little documentation. So that is one complete polar opposite with what's happening in more advanced economies. And with kind of government initiatives, obviously there is a move towards pushing towards kind of increased documentation in our economy, which is a good thing, and inevitably will have to happen. However, in the interim, what I think startups can do is, again, work around these, find solutions for these. And I think something I see, and I think it's actually a very exciting space, because Pakistan, there's a lot of opportunity. One, because of the demographics. Two, because actually the names of the companies we've mentioned, like Stripe or PayPal, they are hesitant to come here because they don't understand the local factors. So we have the benefit. We've both grown up over here. We kind of understand the local dynamic, and we don't see the kind of what in quotation marks you would see as challenges as roadblocks. We see them as ways to actually tailor our product to increase adoption, and that's very much how we see SafePay going forward. One thing I would like to mention though is that I think from a policy framework, the kind of policy drafters need to move from just drafting policies and wishing that some things are implemented to actual, meaningful action and within time limits. Because, we hear of all these frameworks and these policies and these kind of glossy documents, but we don't see enough action on them. And having been in the UK myself, and I was dealing with the financial regulator very closely over there, the framework for creating policies and implementation itself was almost an industry, at which no expense was spared as well, and that resulted in tangible results, and that is what makes a difference. It's great having brilliant ideas, but at SafePay in particular, ideas are just 1% of the solution. 99% is execution and actually getting things through the door. So that's something I think we'd like to see an increase of over here, and hopefully the entrepreneurs and members of Tech Pakistan see this and see that there is scope for that development.
Excellent.
I would just say basically, if you have a passion, if you're interested in things, follow it, explore it. If you're curious, stay curious. And now because of how technology has been able to democratize and make things much simpler and accessible to everyone, take advantage of that. Learn things yourself, and ultimately, if you want to go down the startup entrepreneurial route, find people like you in the same mindset to work with you. Reach out to us whenever. We're always available, happy to help and guide you in any way we can. So yeah, I would just say continue to do what you're doing.
Excellent.
So I've been involved with Tech Pakistan for the last few months, since the end of 2019. I found it to be, a very noble cause, which we need over here essentially. So when I think of entrepreneurship, the next thing which I think of is the entrepreneurial ecosystem. So for example, for SafePay, we need to find resource which helps us achieve our goals, and to the extent we are using that resource, for them to be better trained, for them to be more knowledgeable, it just benefits us. And likewise, our e-commerce merchants who use SafePay, if we provide a better product, they benefit from that. And it's this whole chain, and I think Tech Pakistan is very important in making those links. We're looking to explore our relationship with them further for our own kind of product pipeline and resource pipeline. And again, we want to actually contribute to it as well, because I think it's a responsibility for us as well. Yes, we want to benefit from being in this market, creating kind of a product which is adopted broadly. But at the same time, as Ziyad had mentioned earlier in the interview, it's part of a way we can give back as well. Not through cash, not through what you would directly think is a contribution, but I think spaces like this are super important for exchange of knowledge, exchange of inspiration as well. Because as Ziyad also mentioned, running a startup is challenging, and you will hit a lot of roadblocks. You will hear a lot of noise saying that don't pursue it. But then when you meet members like Kanwal Masroor and other kind of esteemed members of Tech Pakistan, you really get the inspiration to continue. And hopefully, hopefully that's the story for everyone who's a member of the Tech Pakistan community.
Yeah. And from my perspective, I want to kind of say that if the likes of Silicon Valley are an aggregation, an accumulation of people of like-minded engineers, product managers, whatever, in a physical space, then Tech Pakistan is doing that for in a digital space where it might not have a specific area of Pakistan devoted to that, but on an online digital world, people are able to consolidate and congregate in the space that you guys have provided, which is great because you don't have to have a physical location. That's the point of technology.
Excellent.
It connects people wherever they are. And with the kind of services you're providing with meetup spaces, and like you said, you're now in over 10 cities, you have that ability for people to kind of come together and meet people who they might not ever have met and explore new opportunities. That is going to be huge, because right now I feel like a lot of the talent in Pakistan, it's there, but it's so dispersed. And someone needs to bring it together, and I think you guys are best positioned to make that happen.